22-page plan has been organized by conservative think tank the Heritage Foundation and backed by more than 100 additional groups to serve as a blueprint for the next conservative president. Project 2025 told ABC News that it does not speak for any candidate or campaign, although Heritage's president has been quoted as saying his aim is institutionalizing Trumpism. Opponents of former President Donald Trump warned that the project could represent the goals of a potential Trump presidency if elected. If implemented, it would radically reshape the federal government and dramatically expand a president's authority. In its first section titled Taking the Reins of Government, the project reads, "The modern conservative president's task is to limit, control, and direct the executive branch on behalf of the American people." However, Trump has sought to distance himself from the project. So, what are the goals of the project? The project suggests disbanding federal agencies like the Department of Education, an idea Trump has supported, and the Department of Homeland Security. On healthcare, the project recommends withdrawing the abortion pill mifepristone from the market and stopping the drug from being mailed. Additionally, the project suggests that the Department of Health and Human Services should maintain a biblically based social science reinforced definition of marriage and family. When it comes to climate change, Project 2025 suggests cutting federal money for research and investment in renewable energy and instead calls for the next president to stop the war on oil and natural gas. On economics, the proposals recommend cutting and restricting the use of food stamps, reducing the corporate income tax rate, cutting rates for high-income investors, and canceling federal student loan forgiveness programs. Regarding diversity, the project proposes eliminating several terms from all federal laws and regulations: sexual orientation, gender, gender equality, abortion, reproductive health, reproductive rights, diversity, equity, inclusion, and more.
Right here, you got 20 participants.
On the issue of immigration, the project advocates for increased funding for a wall on the US-Mexico border, for the implementation of fees for asylum seekers, and speedier processing at a premium price, immediately deporting unaccompanied children, pause on funding for non-governmental immigration groups, and more. Trump has stated that he has no connection to Project 2025, claiming he knows nothing about it and that some of the things the project puts forward are ridiculous and abysmal. However, several of Trump's current and former advisors and appointees have authored or supported the project. Trump's official Agenda 47 and the proposals uplifted by the Republican National Committee already align in part with some of the Project 2025's goals. Although it's unclear how Project 2025 could impact a potential Trump presidency, Democrats have used Project 2025 in its efforts to motivate voters away from Trump.
Folks, Project 2025 is the biggest attack on our system of government, our personal freedom that has ever been proposed in the history of this country.
And Trump's advisors have created a 900-page blueprint of their agenda for a second term. They call it Project 2025.
You know, us critters know that plants are pretty sweet. Nature's Way took that sweetness and put it in a bottle with zero sugar. New Alive multivitamin gummy.
Project 2025 and the impact it will have on residents across this country, and particularly in North Carolina. It is my pleasure now to introduce at this time the president of the RWCA, the Raleigh Wake Citizens Association, Ms. Sonia Barnes.
Good evening, and thank you to everyone for joining us this afternoon. We hope that this information will be extremely informative and encourage us to really come together and support each other so that we will not have to endure the hardships that this plan will put on our community. Tonight, we are blessed to have our presenter, Ms. Chantel D. Mullen, who is an attorney licensed in Arkansas and Georgia with more than 20 years in the area of law and education. Since 2018 election cycle, she has worked for the Election Protection Hotline, served on the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Hotline, worked as a legal poll watcher, and volunteered on the voter protection teams. She's also worked on several campaigns focusing on supporting Black women candidates. She is the Director of Special Projects for Sister Lead Sisters Vote, a C4 advocacy group focused on building the political power of Black women by amplifying their voices on issues important to the Black community. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming our presenter tonight, Mrs. Chantel D. Mullins.
Hello, hello. Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Well, you know what? I was looking at that video that you were showing, and it looks like you guys are on the ball. And so I am going to walk through a short presentation that I have prepared for you. Please feel free to drop any questions that you may have in the chat. I love for this to be a dialogue. And if I don't have the answer, I'll go find the answer. And I also have some resources, and I've also pulled a little bit of data about how Project 2025 would specifically impact your state. So let me see if I can share my screen here. And all right, can you see my screen? All right, thank you. Well, welcome. And what I'd like to talk to everyone about this evening is, oh, did I mute myself? There we go. Thank you. What I'd like to talk with everyone about this evening is why we should be worried about Project 2025. I know we've been hearing about it, and that's actually a really good thing because it means that we are talking to our communities and we are becoming informed. Here. So what is Project 2025? It's basically the brainchild of the Heritage Foundation. You may or may not have heard about the Heritage Foundation before this election cycle, but they have been around for a while. And they are basically a conservative think tank. However, in this election cycle, they decided to go big. They have created Project 2025, and it's a presidential transition project. It is ready to go as soon as the president is sworn in and says, "So help me God." It is that detailed. It's well funded. And it's not just that it's the Heritage Foundation, but they have collaborated with more than 100 other conservative right-wing leaning organizations to build this project. So what's the goal? The Heritage Project president, Kevin Roberts, wrote that the goal of the project is to make America a conservative nation. Now, there's some things about me that are conservative, but I don't know that I like their idea of conservative because it doesn't align with what I think in the direction we should be going. Uh-oh. Here we go. So, Project 2025, I know we've heard a lot about the mandate for leadership. That's that big book. And let me just tell you something. I put a note up here that says it's somewhere between 887 pages and 920 pages. The first time I downloaded Project 2025, it was over 900 pages. There are some versions of it that are shorter because since we've been talking about it, the Heritage Foundation has started tinkering with it. And so it is not quite 900 pages anymore. They started pulling some stuff out of there. So it has 4 pillars. And I think it's important that everybody understand that it's not just this mandate for leadership. They've also created a personnel database. So they have started recruiting people to work in a Trump administration if he is to be reelected. They already have training videos that are out. Just think about a conservative LinkedIn. They want people who have a specific mindset. Now, if we think back to the previous, the one time, I'm gonna only claim he was gonna be in office one time. The one time that Trump was in office, part of the thing that kept him from doing all the things that he wanted to do were there were some Republicans who actually believed in the rule of law. He doesn't want those folks back. He wants to fire those folks. And there are also some government officials who just are, they serve across administrations. They're not hired by any particular administration. He wants to be able to get rid of all of those people and recruit and be ready on day one. So what I want us to really understand is if he takes whatever oath he takes, when he finishes, it's not just him going to the White House. Mm-hmm. He would take a whole crew of people with him with a particular mindset. Mm-hmm. And they believe everything that he is doing should mm-hmm. be done. I'm going to slide down. The next part of this is he actually has a academy. So it's not just that they're recruiting, they're training, and they're training right now. They're not waiting because, as I said, like January 20th is when the president is sworn in. They want to hire all these people January 20th. They want them to walk in and that because they've got a plan. They also have 180
he got
days.
a group of people that he wants to bring in January 20th.
Yes, ma'am. I see we got a couple of folks unmuted. But there's also a 180-day playbook. They have a plan for the first 180 days. Now, folks, let's be real. If you took the time to do all of this, it means that they're going to implement it. Trump likes to disavow himself from this, but his name is mentioned over 300 times in this document, across the documents. They are preparing, if they can get back in, they are preparing a plan to take it over. And this is the way I explain it to folks. Those folks who showed up on January 6th, who were trying to get in the building and tearing it all down and climbing the walls, Trump wants to hire those folks and walk them in the building and have them paid with your taxpayer-funded dollars to work and implement their plans. So the Heritage Foundation, they're not new to this, y'all. They're true to this. They've been doing this kind of work for over 40 years. This mandate for leadership is something they've published for 40 years. So it's not new. They have been making recommendations to Republican administrations for over 40 years. In fact, when Trump was in office, his first, the only time he's been in office, he implemented 64% of their recommendations. 64%. So you know that they have some influence over him if he's implemented 64% of their recommendations. Now, keep in mind, they don't just send these recommendations to him. they also go to our state legislators. And so they are implementing parts of the Heritage Foundation's mandate for leadership. They're aligning these things all across the state and across our federal government. So we have got work to do. What's planned? I made a list. It's a whole lot of stuff. This is just some of it. And these are the things that I wanted to highlight because it doesn't even require Congress, not an ounce of legislation. He can go in with pencil and paper and do a lot of these things. He can cut overtime protections. He can get rid of our efforts to lower prescriptive drugs. Anybody know anybody who has gotten some prescription drug prices lowered recently? Trump can stop all of that automatically if he gets back in office. He can cut all of the programs that the American Rescue Plan. He can get rid of Head Start. He can push folks around off of Medicare. He can deny students in some states access to student loans and Pell Grants because if their state provides in-state tuition to undocumented immigrants. He can begin to roll back civil rights protections. And the list just continues to get longer. He can cut 180 teaching jobs. This is without any legislation. This is without Congress acting. If he gets in, he can do all of these things. Because a lot of these things have been done with executive orders or their programs. You don't have to get rid of the law. You can just get rid of the program and nothing gets implemented. And so this list, these are just things he can instantly do. I want to go a little bit deeper into a couple of them because he can roll back our civil rights protections. We've already seen that we have not been able to get our Voting Rights Act reauthorized, but they're dismantling everything: diversity, equity, inclusion, and those are three separate ideas. They're not one thing. I know we like to say DEI, but diversity is one thing, equity is another thing, and inclusion is something altogether different. And just don't think that diversity, equity, and inclusion is only talking about race. It's talking about gender. It's talking about ability. It's talking about age. All of those things are protected by civil rights. And they love to focus in on race, but race is not the only thing that is a protected class in civil rights. Healthcare restriction. It's an all-out war on reproductive health. And you know, what I tell folks is, let folks decide. Let them go to their doctors. We don't need government telling us this. And if we look at our maternal mortality rates, particularly for the Black community, we need more our reproductive health care. We have Black women dying. We have Black women suffering. We've got people in areas that don't have hospitals. They don't have doctors. They don't have care. And this all-out war on reproductive health is making it even worse. We've got some, back to the economic impacts. They could, with a stroke of a pen, reduce the overtime. They could, with the stroke of the pen, impact who could get SNAP. They want to cut all of this out. and they want to restrict access to all of these programs. 38 million people, that's a lot of folks, y'all. Over in education, they want to eliminate Head Start. That's over 1 million children. And then they want to go ahead and propose cuts to the federal student loan program. You know, President Biden and Vice President Harris have been working on canceling student debt. They have done a masterful job considering the roadblocks that they have been up against, because there have been lawsuits at every turn, and there's still more coming. And I will just tell you, I sit here today as a benefit of student loan reduction cancellation program. I had mine canceled, and I have been in education. I was like, Lord, I ain't gonna never get through that process, but the Lord worked it out. And I was able, along with other people across the country, have been able to benefit from having our student loan debt canceled. And to be, just to give a little bit of context, that program was so hard to get through. The various programs, we had canceled very little debt. There were people actually eligible for student loan cancellation that weren't able to get through the process. And they cleared up all of that red tape. And they're looking at other ways to cancel student loan debt. Oops. So let's talk about how Project 2025 impacts North Carolina. So one, it would impact your tax burden. You would see a typical family of 4, an increase in your taxes of about $2,700. It would impact about 45,000 households earning over $10 million. They would get a tax cut. So you got to make about $10 million to get a tax cut. It's going to shift it to the folks already carrying the most tax burden. And I remind folks, don't just think about taxes coming out of your check. There's taxes all over. You know, when you go to the store, when you are, paying things, all those taxes are concentrated generally in the middle class and the class below them as well. It's going to impact Social Security. It's going to make some cuts, and they also want to raise the retirement age. That would impact about 73% of North Carolina's residents, 7.85 million folks who would be impacted if they raise that retirement age. So I was watching a video where Pastor Jamal Bryant was talking about this very thing, and how that there's additional impacts for Black men. And he said, Black men gonna croak out before they can cash out. We won't make it to retirement age. We won't be able to get our retirement because they will have raised that age. We won't get to benefit from the Social Security that we have been paying into. It'll also make some changes around Medicaid and prescription drugs. It wants to limit or put in lifetime caps. So that is going to impact about 900,000 Medicaid enrollees in North Carolina. It's also going to raise the cost of prescription drugs. That's going to impact over 600,000 North Carolinians because it is going to hit that out of pocket. And it's also going to block the government from negotiating for lower drug prices. That is something new that the Biden administration has been focused on, but Project 2025 wants to rip that back and just say, nope. And so costs are going to go up for all of these folks. Abortion rights and contraceptive. They want to change and say what contraceptives women would be able to get. They want to ban them. It means you won't be able to get it. And don't just think, and here's where I always tell folks, these folks are extreme. Don't think, well, yeah, okay, I could give on emergency contraceptive. They're not stopping there. Because in other plans, they are talking about all contraceptives. They're talking about all procedures. This is just their entryway. This is their gateway. But they're coming for it all. And right now, this would impact over 1.5 million women. And currently, the current abortion, that limit has been set at 12 weeks. I remind folks, I'm gonna just deviate from my presentation for a moment because I am a lawyer. And I had to talk to a friend of mine who voted for Trump in 2016 because his issue was abortion. And I talked to him about what he wanted to accomplish, but I also gave him a little bit of history. The court that passed Roe v. Wade, and let's be clear, Roe v. Wade was the compromise. It was the compromise. A Republican court passed that. Democrats have not had control of the Supreme Court, I don't believe, in my lifetime. And so they could have changed any of this at any time. The reason they wanted some new Republicans on there is because the Republicans that they had on there, kind of like the Republicans that Trump had at the White House, wasn't going along with it. So they got some that would. We have women dying. We have doctors and other medical providers scared to provide treatment for folks. And don't think it is not my issue, because we don't know what's going to happen next, or we don't know what's going to happen to people that we care about and what we may need. Black women are suffering the most. We already have the worst maternal health care outcomes. This is just another layer on top. We cannot continue at this rate. Childcare. Project 2025 is going to eliminate Head Start. That's 19,000 children impacted in North Carolina. Often in some areas, the Head Start programs are a primary source of childcare in some of our communities. That would wipe out childcare and make it very difficult for families who need that kind of support. Student loans. They've made no secret that they want to get rid of the student loan programs and to get rid of getting rid of student loan forgiveness. There's been over 3,000 people in North Carolina that have gotten, I'll pull my number. It's over 3,000 have gotten student loan forgiveness. That's $33 million that has been relieved from citizens in the state of North Carolina. There's actually also a new income-driven repayment plan. And you've got over 200,000 North Carolinians enrolled in that plan. And they're saving somewhere between $2,700 and $4,000 a year. So Project 2025 would get rid of all of that. They want to get rid of the Department of Education, including Title I. I know some of us have heard about Title I schools. Those are schools that get extra money to serve low-income students. They get extra resources. Project 2025 would end all of that because part of those extra resources are teachers. And if Title I is ended, that's the loss of 6,400 teachers. And those 6,400 teachers serve almost 100,000 students in North Carolina. So we have to think about all of the outcomes and the impacts, and we've got to push back. And so having meetings like this is one of those ways. We've got to make sure we are mobilizing everybody. We've got to get out. We've got to talk to our people. We've got to leverage media and storytelling. We've got to do policy. We got to do it all. Because if these folks are allowed, and it's not just one folk, it's a whole bunch of folks. They have a whole plan. They're taking a whole team if they can get back in. And so we have got to make sure that our folks are aware of this, because one of the things that happens, oh, excuse me, is the more we talk about Project 2025, you know, that long list, those 2 slides that I put up with all of that stuff, there's something on that list that impacts somebody you know. And your charge is to find that thing in this project and on that list that gets that person to say, well, you know what? That's me. Because the more we talk about it and the more people see themselves in this plan, the more they do not like this plan. But also, they don't like the Republicans because they understand that this is the Republicans' plan. Right now, Project 2025 is polling at about 4%. We have driven it into the dirt. But more than that, we've got to drive it into the dirt, and we've got to get people to go to the poll because they've got to vote for something different. There's a different plan out there. We've seen their plan and their playbook. We've got to make sure that we are getting the message out to everyone. I don't know how much more time I have. I have a short video. I can send that link to everybody, and we can just have some time for questions.
You have a few more, maybe 10 more minutes if you want to.
Oh, well, let me show you the quick video,
and then we'll do Q&A. Okay.
Okay. Well, one of the things that when I'm talking to groups, one of the things that I like to emphasize is this: we, in our personal capacity, can only reach so many people. So we have to think about ways that we can amplify the message about Project 2025. One of the things is, sharing things on social media. So I like to grab things and show people some of the things that you can share, because what that allows folks to do is learn and also reshare, because the thing that you want to do is grow your sphere of influence. You want to make sure that people are seeing the message. So let me see if I can get this working here. All righty, let's see. Slide it up just a little bit.
Hey there, who are you?
Oh, just the most important document in our country's history.
You mean the Constitution?
Nope.
The Declaration of Independence?
Yes, again.
The Federalist Papers?
The Federalist, what? No, even more important than whatever you just said. Now sit right here and I'll tell you all about me. I'm just a little paper for the ages, a way to set the government straight. A short 887 pages on how to make America great again by forcing through the president's agenda, removing all of those who disagree, replacing with our loyal party members, and reclaim our great country. In sum, give power to the president to authorize the government to legislate morality and wrestle back normality from Marxist ideologies that infiltrate our policies like gender, race, or anything woke. We're gonna abolish the Department of Education, turn the swearing in into a coronation. America's great salvation will arrive with Project 2025.
Coronation? You mean like a king?
No, it's called the unitary executive theory. Gives the next president unchecked power to do whatever they want.
So, a king?
Oh, let's not get hung up on semantics. Here's how it's gonna work. Once that we've started the transition, and no one's left to tell us to wait, we'll go through every policy position, get rid of all the language that we hate, like civil rights, diversity, and unions, and pronouns to mention but a few. Defunding any liberal institutions that dare question what we do.
I'm pretty sure the Supreme Court...
Oh, the Supreme Court. That's a good one. Now, where was I? Abortion will be pretty much illegal, and reproductive rights will be gone. We'll get back to the biblical ideal that a family means a daddy and a mom with kids. Repeal the crazy climate regulations that get in the economy's way, with everyone reporting to their stations on Inauguration Day. When we give power to the president to authorize the government to legislate morality, expelling abnormality like godless ideologies, protecting inequalities like gender, race, and anything woke. We're gonna abolish the Department of Education, convert the melting pot into a Christian nation. The stage is set and we'll be going live in 2025.
You can't seriously say all that.
Wanna bet? Come on, let's crack me open.
Page 124.
Make more nuclear weapons.
Page 257.
End the war on fossil fuels.
Page 214.
No more gun violence protection.
Page 298.
Or feeding hungry kids at our schools.
Turn to page 5.
Ban offensive books from the classroom.
563.
Make it hard to register to vote.
Page 449.
Dismantle Medicare.
534.
Kill off the grizzly
Page
bear.
4.
Delete the term sexual orientation, gender equality, awareness of sensitivity, diversity, equity, inclusion, abortion, reproductive health, and reproductive rights out of every rule, regulation, contract, grant, and piece of federal legislation that exists. And that's an actual quote. And that, my friend, is only the beginning of how this makes America great. You'll be so overwhelmed with all the winning that you won't know what you've lost till it's too...
Wait! This doesn't sound great at all.
No?
No, it sounds like a fucking nightmare.
Well, I guess if you wanted to, there's still some things you can do to stop it.
Like what?
Well, if you vote to save democracy and stand against autocracy and tell your friends and family, enough with this insanity. We fought too long to part with these essential civil liberties like privacy and equity and bodily autonomy, and what defines a family, equality and empathy And we're not going back, and maybe we can stop this radical abomination. The future all depends on your participation. That's the way democracy will thrive. America was made for you and me, so let's defend our freedom and our dignity. Now raise your voice and let's keep hope alive in 2025. Now vote!
That's
There
cute.
we go. Yes. So that's someone's take on I don't know if you are from the Schoolhouse Rock generation, but that is their take on Project 2025. There's also a really good video that I show that is from Pastor Jamal Bryant. Y'all remember Kid and Play from House Party? Well, they have a podcast. And so he was on their podcast and he was talking about why Black men should be concerned about Project 2025. And it's a really short, less than 2-minute video. And he talks about it and pulls out 5 points from Project 2025 and talks about it just from a Black man perspective. And so there are some good social media graphics out there. I will pull together, I have a whole list of things that I can pull together and send it to you. So you'll have some resource sheets. But the thing that we should keep in mind is when we talk about it and point out the things that are happening, people don't like it. They start to see it personally. They see the personal impacts, and it is driving how they feel both about the plan and about the Republican Party. Are there any questions?
Okay, it's open now for questions. Did we have any?
Oh, I have one. I wasn't sure if I was able to unmute myself. Your presentation was very good, to the point, short and sweet. And I wanted to find out if those of us that registered on this Zoom call, if we can get the canned presentation, your talking points, as well as the videos. And then at least then you know that people are presenting what has already been vetted through the quote unquote experts that have gone through with a fine tooth, right, comb on Project 2025. I'm thinking that churches, schools, colleges, especially the colleges, those students that are registered voters, they need to know what this means and how it impacts them, because it's really going to impact them.
It is. I will download my presentation. I'm dropping the link for the song in the chat now, and I will grab the link for the other video and drop that in the chat as well.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question too. And my question is, when we talked about the authors of 2025 messing with Medicare, will they be able to mess with individuals already on Medicare, or will it be those that are trying to get on Medicare?
It'll be both.
Both. Ooh, okay.
I mean, they have a lot, they will have a lot of authority. The one thing that I hope that folks have learned since 2016 is a lot of our government works on gentleman and gentlewoman's agreement. There are some rules that, let me give you a couple of examples. if you think back to when President Obama was in office, when the president nominates a judge to sit on the federal bench, there was a process that they had called blue slips. And it meant that the senators from that state where the judge was from had to return a blue slip. And if they didn't return that blue slip, then the nomination wouldn't go forward. And so the Republicans stopped returning the blue slips during the Obama administration. And so we had people who we couldn't advance and judges that he had nominated, but we couldn't get them a hearing. We couldn't get anything for them because the Republicans refused to cooperate. That was an agreement. That's nothing written down. It's kind of like also when Ruth Bader Ginsburg passed, and they told Obama that it was too close to the election to nominate a Supreme Court justice. But then they turned around during Trump's administration and nominated a Supreme Court justice with like 60, 70 days left. A lot of those are just unwritten rules. And they're just agreements that we have. And so we've got a lot of things in our government that are just spaces where we've been cooperating together. But then what happens when one side decides not to cooperate anymore? And they decide, well, the rules are whatever we say the rules are. We can change our mind basically every day. And so the danger in putting in a group like this is, one, we have a Supreme Court that has given the president some level of immunity that they did not have before. Putting a Trump in office with this Supreme Court and this level of immunity, the question I ask you is, who's going to stop him? Because they basically says anything that he does, he has immunity for. So if he wakes up and decides to say, CIA, I want you to, because CIA is not supposed to operate in America. But I want the CIA to investigate everybody who's at one of those Project 2025 meetings. We have to understand we would have an internal battle because the question is, who's going to stop them? Supreme Court has no army, and they've basically given him immunity. The president is the head of the military. And if he comes in and brings like-minded folk, because don't forget, it's not just him coming back. They're recruiting people who would not do what he wanted to do the first time. So it's not, it is a whole thing. It's him and a posse. Mr. Byrd, Stanley.
Yes, good evening. Thank you for your presentation. Very enlightening. I had a couple of I've encountered a couple of people, business owners, entrepreneurs over the past couple of months who kind of articulated a couple of things that I didn't, and it may be in the Project 25, but I don't see it. But as entrepreneurs, they kind of felt that things were going good for them under Trump. And so they're more concerned about their business under Trump as opposed to Vice President Harris. How do we point out something in Project 2025 that could affect their business under a Trump administration?
Well, there are a
And
lot.
let me add, they're in their 40s, so they're not concerned about Medicare. They're not some of them are their kids out of school or grown or adults. So they're not concerned about, those things that may impact people who are younger than they are. They're in their mid to late 40s.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's a couple of things. One, let me see, let me back myself up. You know, what I tell folks is this: what's your 30 pieces of silver? Because you're willing to sell out your community for profit. And next week, he will turn around and turn on you. For the life of me, I don't understand how people cannot see. He has turned on everybody, and you have to go along. There are communities that he has gone into and said, hey, I'm going to bring back your business. He has not. He has never been for the middle class. And he's not going to be. Just this week, he was at a round table talking about farmers. And he told John Deere, if you do X, I'm going to do Y, and you ain't going to be able to do business here. You are going to be at the whim of somebody who you may benefit for a moment, but what about everybody else? And that's the issue that I have, because we have people who are willing to put profit over the community. And I think it is because capitalism has become so skewed that people are just like, I'm going to get mine and forget everybody else. And they will get you too. And that's the thing that folks are missing. They ultimately will get you too. And, I'm not a Republican, but I can see what he's doing to his own folks. I tell folks, if I see a man, he might be a nice looking man, have a good income, but if he's out and he slaps the woman he's with, I'm not finna take my behind over there. He has slapped all these Republicans. Treat them like anything. And you think he's going to treat you better. I do not understand the psychology. And for our business folks, some of the policies that they're benefiting from are not his policies. And when it all crashes, they'll be looking around. I'm serious. I don't understand it. But we've got to have those conversations with them about the people who will be your customers are the community. And if the community goes, who are you going to get money from? They abandoned businesses during COVID. There was a whole nother way that this thing could have gone with just a little bit of effort. What's happening is some of the business people don't like the policies because COVID brought about a shift, an economic shift and a workforce shift. And some of that is some resentment to some of that as well. But, you know, we just have to keep working with them because, you know, I personally don't understand it, but.
Yeah. Oh, I agree totally with it. I just was wondering if there was something in the document that we could point to, because, you know, I was honestly shocked to hear this coming from individuals and strongly advocating for Trump. And when I even brought up Project 25, he said, well, anybody can, if I don't really like you, anybody can bring up a document and try to link it to you because they don't like you. And so I agree with you. I don't understand the rationale, but for some reason they have kind of wrapped it around their minds that this is the better way to go. And it's just baffling to me.
Yeah.
We got to move to some other questions.
Yes, yes, ma'am. I was
Miss
getting there.
has her hand up.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Barnes, and thank you, Ms. Mullen. Good afternoon, your evening. Your presentation was wonderful, and the songs I copied the link already. But the question that I have, which is kind of baffling to me, but I've attended a couple of presentations on Project 2025 and been in several meetings trying to kind of wrap my head around it a little bit. It's too much to say that you'd understand it. You know, I have to say that. But the thing that when you spoke about the document that I had started with when I first heard about it was the 900-page document. I didn't read every page, but I flipped through a lot of that online. I didn't download the whole thing. But you mentioned now that the document is smaller, 800 something pages, whatever. Do you have any idea or possibility to able to tell us anything about what was cut out? What was so glaring that the foundation thought we better get this out of here now that people know about it? And one second question. The thing, just to reference what Reverend Burt was saying, one of the things that I've done when I've engaged in conversations with people is try to really talk to that person about the things that's going to affect them directly. And one of the things, particularly for women, not just the reproductive, yes, that's very important, et cetera, but there was something, and that's why I'm asking about what was deleted, because there was something in the original document about getting rid of the 19th Amendment, which gives women the right to vote. And if most women understand that if this thing comes to be, that our right to vote may be signed away with just the stroke of a pen, that will bring up a red flag for most women that are interested at least in voting. And there's some other things that are specific for women. As you said, there's some things that are specific for men. Engaging with those that have Medicare to help them see this may affect your Medicare. That's been my take when I'm talking to people, to try to narrow it down to them specifically, not the broader, but this will affect you this way. So back to the original question. Have any idea of what the Heritage Foundation decided we better snatch out of there before everybody starts looking at it? Just a kind of a global.
I don't know.
Okay. You just know it's smaller.
I just know it's smaller because what started happening is we started talking about it.
Yeah.
And people started making graphics.
Yeah.
And so they started pulling some stuff out, rearranging it. So when you, they would start fact checking it and say, well, that's not on this page, where it was on this page, but on the new version, it's on this page. And so some of this stuff that they've done to get around the fact checkers, and they pulled some of it out. Yes, the right to vote for women is under attack. If you, and the thing that I tell folks is Republicans signal what they plan on doing.
Yes.
So when the decision came down that overturned Roe versus Wade, in the dissent, no, I'm sorry, in the majority, they went through a list of cases. Those cases are undergird a number of rights that we have. And so those cases are like the right for contraceptives, not just all contraceptives. That came out of the right to privacy. The right for interracial marriages came out of the right for privacy. Same-sex marriages came out of the right for privacy. Women's right to vote is in that group. So we have a whole group of rights that come out of a body of cases. They are going through to undermine each and every one of them. And so they have laid a roadmap to say, basically, this is what we're going after next. And so we need to be very mindful because we're rolling back all of the stuff that we've gained in the last 50 or 60 years.
So that's why I wanted to bring that up tonight. For I see a lot of female names on here, and if we don't do anything else but really pay attention and let our sisters know that we've got a lot of work to do to make sure that we don't go back to being invisible in America, not just from a race perspective, but as you pointed out when you started out, from a gender perspective, that we will have no voice in this country if this thing comes to pass. And so thank you so much for this presentation tonight, and God bless you.
Thank you. And I will send you the fact sheet by state, and I'll actually send you the link to the main page because y'all have relatives all over. And so you may want to download and grab the fact sheet by state. These are updated as of the beginning of September. There's an organization that has been out here doing this work, trying to figure out and let people know what those things are. And so you can go in and grab the fact sheet for your state, but also if you've got some folks that you need to send those fact sheets to, you can grab them. And I've got a couple of other resources. I'm going to try to grab those. If not, I will send those to Candy to get out to you guys.
Okay. And I just want to throw this point in there too. And this is my opinion, but I think that we have to also be vigilant, because I think they're trying to resegregate these schools again. If you look at what's happening in North Carolina, how they're taking a lot of the money from the public school system and funneling it into these charter schools. And if that continues, I think that we're going to have all of the low-income Black and brown children in the public school, and all of the other kids, the bulk of the money and stuff will follow those other children to those charter schools, which means that they will not be receiving the same education. So we've got to be mindful of that. We've got to stick together. If we've ever needed to walk together and stick together, we need to do that now. And
our schools are segregated now than they've ever been.
And I tell you, if the wrong people get in office, the man can have all the little business he wanted temporarily, but they'll do him just like they did Michael Steele, who used to be the chairman of the Republican Party. They use you, and then after they finish with you, they toss you aside. So we've got to stick together, because if the wrong people get in there, all of us are going to suffer. It's just a matter of time. They'll pick us off one by one. I would also like to encourage everybody to join with us at the polls during the election cycle. And I'm gonna give you my email address. I'm president of RWCA, and I also work with Mr. Bass and some other groups here in Wake County. You want me to put in the thing? If it's Sonia R. Barnes 1@gmail.com.
I'll make sure you get it, Miss Sonia. I'll make sure you get it. This is Candy.
Okay. All righty. All right. And Pastor Bird is going to have a Souls to the Pole event. When is that, Pastor?
October the 20th, 1:30 to 4 o'clock. We're gathering at the Martin Luther King Memorial. We're going to hear from the candidates, and then we're going to march to Chavis Community Center.
Okay. You have, if
October.
I'm not mistaken, 17 days of early vote in Wake County this year.
Right.
You have 22 early vote sites and 17 days of early vote. So it's imperative that you bring everybody that can possibly vote. Take them to the polls, drive them to the polls, encourage them to go vote. Because I'm telling you, our future and our children's future depend on it. I've said time and time again, well, this is the most crucial election I've ever had, but God knows when I say it this time, I'm telling the truth. So just do whatever you can to make sure that all of your friends and neighbors go out and vote. And I would like to thank Ms. Mullins for an excellent presentation. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for helping us. Thank you for letting us know what's in that 2025 plan. And we're going to try to stay in touch with you and Senator Candy. We're going to stay in touch with y'all. At this time, Marcus, is there anything else anybody want to say before we close out? Tyler, did you have something you wanted to say?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. So did anybody else have any questions or anything before we close out?
Excellent.
Is the recording going to be made available?
The recording will be made available. We'll send it out in email to all participants. Also, too, as you close, Chairwoman Barnes, we would like to maybe close in prayer.
Okay. Father God, we come before you tonight. First of all, God, we ask for forgiveness for any sin that's in our life, God, for anything that would hinder this prayer from being answered. God, we need you like we've never needed you before, God. God, we ask that you lead, guide, direct, and order our steps, God. God, and we ask that you give us the wisdom and the knowledge to know how to move and when to be quiet and when to speak up. God, we ask that you lift every burden and block these doors, God. We plead the blood of Jesus against these demons that's coming against us right now. In the mighty name of Jesus, lead, guide, direct, and order our step. Give us the spiritual eyes to see and the spiritual ears to hear and a heart and a mind to obey you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. We thank you all for joining us tonight for this very important conversation around the importance of Project 2025. Regardless of who individuals vote for, they should know the importance of these policies and how they will affect each and every single one of them. We thank the Raleigh Wake Citizens Association for sponsoring tonight's conversation. This will conclude the conversation. We look forward to sharing this recording with you at the conclusion of this conversation. Have a good evening.
And thank you for inviting me. Nice to meet everybody virtually.
Thank you. Somebody wanted your PowerPoint too, Ms. Mullins.
I just did it in a new platform. Let me see if I can download it.
Okay.
And send it to you guys.